announcement over the intercom system saying, our brand new baseball team, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, is having open tryouts for bat boys and clubhouse positions. And I'm like, I literally just took off all my clothes, put the cowboy hat over my private parts, and got out and ran into the crowd and just started going, yee-haw. You know, once I became a DJ and started throwing these parties and events, you know, my goal was to, this is like an island. This is beautiful. This is literally, I dreamed of living there. And I always said to myself, once I make it, once I have a family, we are moving there.
Pretty much saying that they'll be able to do surgery with our cells at a quantum level with this super solid of light.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Talkin St. Pete. I'm your host, Ryan Bogden. On today's episode, we had Doug Hensel, a.k.a. DJ Fresh. Let me tell you, you're going to want to listen to this. We covered all things from the history of St. Pete to those that love to live back in Shore Acres to AI, quantum computing, his journey from running around naked with a cowboy hat over his privates. I mean, this was a fun, action-packed episode. You're not going to want to miss it. And I want to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by Bogden Homes here at Keller Williams St. Pete. So if you know anyone in the area that needs any real estate needs, whether that's connection to a good landscaper or just wants a home valuation, we're definitely here to help. And I also want to let you know that on April 10th, we have the Hometown Titan Retreat, which I'm speaking at 11:30. So please find your tickets there. I'm very excited to talk with the industry on all things there at the Mahaffey Theater on April 10th. Like, when did the name, when you're like, oh, now people know me by DJ Fresh?
Yeah, so it was really cool. You know, born and raised here, right?
Yeah.
Technically born in Tampa, raised in St. Pete. Parents are divorced, so spent my time kind of jumping across when my dad was here and wanted to be a dad. It was like, okay, then I would go, you know, Tampa on the weekend, see him. Mom and great-grandmother moved down here from like Indiana, Ohio area back in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
So we've got kind of a long kind of standing, you know, longevity here in St. Pete, which is really cool. But I graduated from high school in 1998. So when I was 18, there was a brand new radio station that just came on air, and it was a big deal for us. We'd never had a hip-hop contemporary radio station. We had a top 40 and pop, country, all the other stuff. So Wild 98.7 came on air, which is now called Wild 94.1, and it was a big deal. I mean, they played Wild Thing for 24 hours straight for like months on repeat, just as a guerrilla marketing tactic. It was insane. Everybody wanted to work for the station. So I go down there, I go try to get an application. The girl wouldn't even give me an application. She's like, yeah, I'm going to be honest. There's like 400 people that have came and got applications in the last couple of weeks and stuff, and they're like backlogged. You're not going to get. Wouldn't even give me an application. I'm like, can I get it? She's like, I don't even have an application to give you. I knew because at the time, this town was still known as like God's waiting room. So it was still a retirement.
What year is this?
This is 1998.
Okay.
So this is my senior year in high school. So, and first year in college, right? St. Pete College. So it was a big deal for everybody to try to get in with this station. So I just called up everybody I knew. There was no social media back then. I called up everybody I knew, and I was like, who do you know that works for one of these stations that's a sister station at Wild, right? Back then, I think it was... I forget what the broadcast. So they had a jazz station, they had a country station, whatever. Turns out an elementary school friend, this is why it pays to know people and have a good network. Turns out an elementary school friend of mine said, well, my mom works for the smooth jazz station. She's in sales. So I go, give me your phone number. So I call her up and I reintroduce myself.
You're 18, 19 at the time?
18, 19 years old.
Okay.
And I call her up and I said, I'm just looking for an opportunity. I will do whatever it takes. I just need to get my foot in the door. Is there anything you can do to help me? I'll do anything. I'll clean the bathrooms. I'll mop the floors.
And what was your attraction to it? Just because everyone else wanted, or you knew it was going to be?
No, because I loved music.
Yep.
I loved I was not a DJ. I loved music. I was working at Publix at the time, and also I was working as a bat boy for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays because I had actually, in my senior year in high school, they had made an announcement over the intercom system saying, our brand new baseball team, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, is having open tryouts for bat boys and clubhouse positions. And I'm like, literally skipped school, got in my car, drove down to Alling Field. Nobody was there, to try to get in with them. Wound up really kind of getting my foot in the door over there, beat out like 300 some kids to become one of the first bat boys. So that's my long kind of tenure with the team.
Yep.
But during this kind of same time as I was, you know, a bat boy for the Rays and kind of finishing up just working at Publix, which is everybody's kind of like one of their first jobs, grocery store, supermarket. I got a phone call from one of her friends at the country station, actually. And he said, hey, can you come in for an interview? Before I vouch for you, I need to meet you. I was like, absolutely. Went there, really hit it off. Turns out it was Dave McKay from WQIK, who was just like one of the biggest names in radio at the time. He was doing her a favor. She was one of the top sales reps at the country station. He goes, listen, I can't promise you anything, but I can.
What were you applying for? What did you want to do?
Anything.
Anything. Didn't matter.
I didn't care. I would clean the toilets.
Just want to be part of staff.
I knew if I could get my foot in the door, I would
you...
eventually work for that hip hop radio station. That was my goal. Mm-hmm. So he got me a job doing radio music surveys. So I would go in at like night, like 5 o'clock, and work till like 9 p.m. or like 6 to 10. And I would call people around the country. Remember, this is before social media. You couldn't just message people. So I was calling random people and saying, hey, I'm Doug. I'm calling from radio music survey, whatever. Just want to know what you like to listen to. You know, what's in your CD wallet?
Yeah.
There were no iPods back then.
No.
Like,
what are you flipping through?
Right.
What's in your visor?
What's in your visor? You know, the good old days. Like, you know, do you have any cassette tapes? If so, what are you listening to?
Which one's most worn out?
Is it Queen? Is it Beastie Boys? Is it classical? Is it jazz? Is it Sade? Like, what is it? So I did that for like 3 months, and I got to know so many music like tastes. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really realize it at the time, but it was almost like it was a manifestation of like curating playlists and knowing what people liked and what they didn't like. Yep. So at the time, I was in this little room, kind of like where we're in now, with like 2 or 3 other people just calling. At the end of my shift, I would leave, but I would always walk past the studio door of all the other radio stations, including Wild 90.7. Well, I would just always say hi and be nice or whatever. And one day they invited me into the studio. And man, I was like, what do you guys need me to do? And they're like, hey, you want to field these requests? Absolutely. And I'm just taking requests down. Yeah, we'll got you. No problem. Give us a few songs, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, dang, this kid's like hustling, you know, or whatever. Then they kept asking me to come back and come back and come back. So I do my radio surveys. Then I would go back and I would do whatever they wanted to in the studio. And I was like an intern. I always wore a Florida Gator hat. Never went to UF. I just liked the colors. So they called me Gator Boy, which was like my intern name.
Right.
And then soon after that, we were giving away Jay-Z concert tickets. And back then, we would do these kind of pop-ups where we would go to like a Kmart parking lot or a mall parking lot or somewhere, and we'd have like hundreds of people just wanting to get bumper stickers and T-shirts and swag and stuff like that. So we were giving away these Jay-Z tickets, did this crazy concert or this contest, and we were getting ready to go off air, but we only had 2 pairs of tickets. And there were 4 people still left standing on one leg. It was a 1 leg up contest. These people have been standing on one leg for like an hour, hour and a half.
Oh, no.
It was insane, the stuff that we used to make people do.
Right.
So everybody's freaking out. We only had like 15 minutes until midnight, and that's when we went off air. We have to get this bit done. We have 2 of the radio jocks that are there, you know, doing a live remote, so they're calling in. Remember, there's no video back then, so it's just they're calling, describing what's going on. So they're like, somebody needs to do something. Somebody needs to do something. Get them to drop their legs so we can give these tickets away. And I didn't even think about it. I just, for some reason, there was a cowboy hat hanging on the studio, which is wild, kind of weird for a hip hop station.
Yeah.
So I grabbed the cowboy hat, got my car. The Kmart was actually across the street on North 9th Street. And I don't know why, but it was a different time back then, and I wasn't married. I literally just took off all my clothes, put the cowboy hat over my private parts, got out and ran into the crowd and just started going yee-haw, like on 2 of the people who were still in the contest. One girl started laughing so much she dropped her leg. She was out. Another guy started laughing so much he dropped his leg. Boom. 2 winners, 2 contestants. Everybody started going crazy. I drive back to the studio and everybody's like, what the hell did you do? Like, what did you do? And I thought I was fired. I was like, oh, well, there goes my shot. There goes my chance.
Yeah.
Literally the next day, they had application for employment the next day, and they gave me a new radio name, and then that was kind of the start of the career.
Boom.
And then it became part of the Big Mom and the Wild Bunch show at night, became a radio personality. We would go promote at all of the nightclubs, like in Ybor, in this one club called the Pleasure Dome. It was hip hop night on Friday. Saturday was like, you know, techno and house and stuff. And then that's how I became a DJ. So the DJ who was there was just insane the way he would make people dance, have them stop, play a crappier song to let them take a break. to go to the bar and get drinks, and he was like orchestrating a concert almost. I was like, man, you got to teach me how to play music like that. He was the one that became my mentor. He was the one that dubbed me DJ Fresh. But it was because of me taking that opportunity and doing whatever I could to get in radio that led me into that.
Yeah, we got there, and DJ Fresh was born.
Yeah.
All right. So Doug Hensel, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Sorry for that lengthy thing.
No. It's great. I love we. It's rare that we ever just jump in. So I find with you and being a radio personality, it just made sense. We don't need the formal introduction. I'll do it at the end. I can relate to all that. At 13, my first job, I was a DJ at a roller skating rink.
Come on.
And I did that for 5 years up until I graduated high school.
Very
But
cool.
to your point, the owner would tell me, "Hey, we need to get the snack bar sales up."
Right.
And so I would play country music.
Yeah.
And everyone would leave.
Yeah. You can't really roller skate a country. No offense to country fans out there,
no offense. But for our crowd, they didn't like country music.
Sure.
They would not skate to it. And that's how, boom. But then it was a balance because we knew on the DJs that I took over to where I was doing every Saturday night.
Yeah.
That was my thing. Because the other DJs, they would sometimes play what they wanted to hear or whatever.
Sure.
We would have more fights if they weren't having fun.
Sure.
Because then they're on the off skate. They're not having a good time. They get bored. They start getting rowdy with each other.
Yeah. Well, and this is where?
Enola, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Yeah, across the street from Harrisburg.
Yeah. Philadelphia area where you guys get a little rowdy.
Yeah, get a little rowdy. We were talking about that. No, for sure. So to your point though, but keeping and making sure you can't play too many bangers back to back.
Sure.
They get tired.
Sure.
Yeah.
We always say like 1 for you, 3 or 4 for them.
Yep.
You can't just play for yourself. You're there to entertain.
Yep.
Right? And it's like that in a lot of other businesses. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have 4 different companies. So it's really like that in business as a whole, right? You can't just do everything for yourself.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's life's balance, man.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It really is. It's cool. I love that story and getting into radio. It makes a lot of sense. The personality. But you're in with the Rays, okay? Because you're DJ Fresh for the Rays. Did that happen because of being Bat Boy? So how did because you're with the radio station and bridge the gap for us to how you end up at the Rays?
Right. So I only worked for the radio station for about 3 years, became a DJ, started really kind of taking off with that. At the time, I had also kind of exited from being a Bat Boy. It was, I did it 1998, 99, 2000, 2001. By then I'm 21. I'm like, all right, I don't really want to be a 21-year-old Bat Boy. There's got to be something else.
Right. What am I doing?
I like to progress in life, right? I came up, really kind of single mom. I was always doing odd jobs, 13, 14 years old, grinding, trying to hustle and add some extra income. My grandmother too, as well, was like a second mom to me. So I always wanted to have, we didn't have a lot growing up. So it was like, I really wanted to be able to have my own pocket money. I really wanted to be able to help support too. At the home front. So for me, it was like, if I'm not progressing, I'm dying. If I'm not progressing, I'm happy.
I get it.
So how do I keep progressing? So there's no room to move up with the Rays because the clubhouse guys had it made. I mean, I went to work every day with Wade Boggs, Fred McGriff, Jose Canseco. I mean, guys I idolized, like watching, and trading their baseball cards. But for me, it was like, all right, well, I need to figure something else out. So I started working in the promotions department, started doing some other stuff with like marketing with the Rays. So I always kept my my foot there. But I was growing my DJ company so fast and so quick because at the time too, I started throwing parties and events because back then there was no downtown nightlife like there is. There was no Goodnight John Boy. There was no dance clubs. You had a martini bar in Dan Marino's that had just been built at Baywalk, which is Sundial. And that was it. So you would have to go to Tampa if you wanted to go party and dance or go meet somebody. So I would start throwing parties like when Bella Brava opened their first location on Central. I would throw like a really nice high-end, sexy elevated where people could come and meet each other and, have a good time. DJ from the balcony inside. It was really cool. Or I'd go just throw parties at warehouses. Ferg's too. Ferg was very pivotal in helping me get my start. And I never forget that. And we talk about it all the time. And we still do stuff together to this day, 24 or 5 years later, because he's such a good steward of the community and in the brand that he has helped other people kind of, get out there.
Yeah, let's talk about that because that's my favorite thing that I've discovered. I think this is episode, 76? Or so we're in the 70s.
Yeah, you look good for doing 76 episodes.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been a lot of fun to discover the the community aspect of
Yeah.
St. Pete and how it's changed over the years, right? And so you're saying Ferg's being a staple that helped you there, but you've watched the city transform and have been a part of that transformation. So talk a little bit about that. Like, how has the community shown up and how has it shifted over the years for you?
Yeah, it's really wild. You know, I know you had like Nathan Stonecipher on here. I love him to death. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Great family, great businessman, great community leader. Megan O'Keefe too on the tech side.
Yeah.
Right.
Big.
You know, we didn't have a tech side. We never had a tech side in St. Pete. We had an arts community and culture, but we didn't have the Dolly back then. We didn't have a lot of the mural festivals. We didn't really have it on that level. It was more kind of underground, right? Like I said, you know, this used to be God's waiting room was the nickname for St. Pete. So once I became a DJ and started throwing these parties and events, you know, my goal was to help build the vibe in the nightlife sector for St. Pete so that people didn't have to leave and go spend their money in Tampa. And back then, our curfew was only 2 a.m. So you couldn't even really party till 3 a.m. until we had those laws changed, and we advocated for that. So to go from this sleepy town where there's nowhere to go to now you have groups like, you know, the Ford Hospitality Group that has all those new hotspots, you know, with those themes coming from Cleveland and seeing what we have going on here and investing millions and millions and millions of dollars, you know, the tech sector, you know, has grown immensely. Kathy brought her company down here too. Now we have a whole tech sector and tech meetups and stuff like that at breweries. You know, there were no beer breweries ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like so to watch, you know, now our skyline's changing. You know what I mean?
Big time.
400, you know, the residences at 400. I just did their topping off celebration a few months ago. And it's really cool to see that St. Pete is now on the map. Now, with that being said, we have to make sure it still stays St. Pete. We cannot lose that St. Pete charm. And that's the only thing that I worry about. I love that there's no Applebee's downtown. I love that it's all homegrown, small, medium-sized businesses, local businesses. We just need to make sure we keep it that way.
Well, you're drumming the beat to the right drum of the show here, because that's been a big theme here. And I just had a conversation with Mike Sweezy, CEO and president of the St. Pete Economic and Development Corps. And that was a big thing. I said, hey, and that's a big mission of theirs, of even the companies that are coming in or belonging on Central. Really, that's the main aspect of what belongs there and what doesn't. Right. You know, because you can't change the vibe too much. Sure. And I give it off to the Red Apple Group, who's doing 400 Central, because I just had a meeting with them. We're talking about putting a new business in their commercial space downstairs, and they've turned. And I'm so pleased to hear this, because I was scared. I've heard they've turned away bigger franchises because they don't want them there. They know how important that block is going to be on 400, right across there from Lonnie's and all the other restaurants right there. Right. We can't put a Starbucks there. Right. Right. It doesn't belong.
Right. And I think that's the charm, right? You know, these big groups that come from New York, these major markets, right, where it's just so fast-paced, so crazy. You know, you turn your head and there's 50 different businesses or 50 different retail spaces or 50 different restaurants or entertainment spaces. But that's the charm of St. Pete, right? So are you going to come into our town and are you going to do it the right way? Are you going to come into our town and not do it the right way and potentially face a mini revolt? We don't have to, keep in mind, we don't have to support.
So let me ask you this. Here's my one.
I'm not trying to be that guy.
No, I'm the one guy on one topic, because the controversy gets views, man. So
well, hey, listen. Let's dive in.
Let's dive in. So my little like, can't believe they did that, and I want to know your opinion on it, because you've been here a while. Maybe you can change my thoughts, or maybe you agree with me. How do we feel about Melting Pot on Central?
So Melting Pot was a staple, right, on 4th Street. And it was such a really cute, old, kind of very like Switzerland style, Norwegian style kind of building. I don't really know too much of the history, but I remember going there like as a kid, right? It was kind of like a staple. And I'm not sure about the ownership group. Like
me neither. I haven't, and I should probably know, because I don't know if it's local or outside.
So if they're local, why should I go against that, right? Why should I go against that if
but if I'm local and I open a McDonald's franchise on Central, I'm local.
Yeah, is the Melting Pot a franchise?
Yes. There's over 90 locations across the U.S.
I don't know. I kind of feel like
It's either 60 or 90. I could be having a dyslexic moment.
that's all right. No judgment here. This is no judgment.
No
Talking
judgment.
St. B zone.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, but my point is, I can go to Pennsylvania, go to the melting pot. I can go to most major cities and find a melting pot.
I think, you know, if it was, I don't know. I kind of want to say I feel like they were maybe grandfathered in.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah, so if they were grandfathered in, it was a staple on 4th Street, maybe something happened with their lease or this or that or whatever. I think it's still a fun experience to go on a date, to go with your kids. It's an experience when you eat there. You're not eating there once a week. Right. You're not eating there once a month.
It's like a birthday, anniversary.
110%. You know, so, you know, I think, look, I think there's arguments on both sides.
There is,
right?
but I find that's been
but how much square footage are they taking up? Are they taking up too much?
It's two floors.
All right.
It's a big spot, and so I'm curious to see how it does.
Well, look, if it doesn't do well, then there's opportunity. There's always economic opportunity for another business.
The city voted on it. No, and I don't mean any, because I don't want to see any business not do well, and maybe it's maybe I'm so wrong on this, but I'm just
crush it, and then they won't even let you in there because you were talking smack.
You know what? Whatever. You know what? I don't need the cheesiness. You know, I don't need the cheesy. I think it's
just the dessert, just the chocolate.
Yeah,
dip.
maybe just give me a strawberry or two.
Well, let me. So like, let's flip the script, right? So
like, I don't like the Sweet Green's opening. I know a lot of people are happy about Sweet Green.
Yeah,
because I've ate a Sweet Green in Philly, and so but they're like in that weird in between spot, right, where they're like a boutique franchise.
Well, I think there has to be a give and take. Yeah, can we really sit there and be those anti?
No,
you know what I mean?
No.
Like, right?
But here's what happens, and this is where I don't have an issue. Do I really have an issue with melting pot? No. Do I really have an issue with Sweet Green? No. But what I have an issue with is that those players come in, maybe they can afford a little more rent. All the other people here, and now they want to increase their rent, and now mom and pop can't afford to be on Central anymore. That's my bigger concern.
Sure, but I also think, you know, you could easily say that about, you know, I'm not going to name any names, but you could also say that about massive new condo developments going up too that are changing our skyline that are also going to increase. It's just there's a lot of factors that come into play with that too, right? Times are changing, you know. As a small business owner, I used to open up a lot of nightclubs and stuff, right? And I used to you know, really consult on nightlife establishments, you know, and sometimes we had to go off of that central block because back in the day, you know, we started seeing those rent increases. You know, now stuff is top dollar, but maybe that also breeds innovation. Right? You know, look at, you know, that big, huge pickleball complex that's going. Where is it going? In the industrial district. Why? Because you can't afford to get rent anywhere else. But over there, it's still untapped. There's still a ton.
Well, we know that
when it drops you off, right, basically there off the interstate too. So you have to adapt sometimes too, and you might have to go off the beaten path to be able to compete financially with rent.
Well, we know Central and downtown is moving west.
Sure.
Right. It's going to keep heading towards that way, and I'm excited. Well, let me say, I know change is inevitable, and and I hope we're only change for the better, not for the worse. But for those old timers, and I mean old timers, maybe you were born here, your family was born here. You're going to say St. Pete's not the same. Of course not.
Sure.
The secret's out. This is a cool place to live.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And to your point, we just have to be particular about keeping the charm.
110%. We lose the charm, we lose the city. Yep. We lose the vibe, we lose the city.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you know, we have Reggae Rise Up coming to town, right? Which is a niche demographic of music lovers, right? But which is great for the city because all of those people go and eat somewhere, stay somewhere, spend their money in retail spaces. Yeah. I would like to see, you know, some you know, really kind of multiplex mixed use spaces happening here too as well. I would love to see a major hotel with, you know, a couple of big, huge ballrooms so we can actually bring some big, not a convention center, but so that we can actually bring some big, huge corporate dollars into our city and let them stay and play and eat at all of our places and fund all of our small and medium-sized business owners. My buddies just opened the St. Pete Irons Club, the indoor golf simulator, bar, lounge.
Yeah, haven't been over there yet. How is it? Awesome.
We needed it.
Yeah.
We needed a place like that.
I got to talk to those guys. We got to link up with them.
I'm telling you, it is such a vibe in there. I'm going to start having my business meetings in there. You know, you can have first dates in there. You can have just, you know, all kinds of networking events. But places like that, we need. You know, we need new, innovative, cool.
We do.
Fun places.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Downtown, it's so neat. I mean, there's no complaint about the city, to be honest.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure we could find something.
Except for these people riding scooters everywhere. That drives me nuts. But other than that, it's a
Well,
whole nother topic.
stay in there.
Yeah, they don't do that. You know, now you're driving, and now you gotta, you know, it's like a bad video game. You know, you gotta dodge the people on scooters because they.
Well, it is
know.
a better transportation method during high traffic times. I will say.
Yeah,
I'm one
agreed.
of I'm one of the culprits, probably. Listen,
if I see you zinging his hang on a scooter, I'm gonna yell at Ryan.
If I'm running late, I got to get down to Beach Drive for a dinner or something. I'm taking a scooter because I don't got to find parking. I don't got to do any of that stuff.
Yep,
you know
there's always pros and cons.
There's pros and cons here, but I am zipping through the cars because I'm like, why am I going to wait behind you? I'm on a scooter, man. Come on.
We'll edit that out. Edit that out.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I'll take the heat. It's okay. I know.
I love the honesty, man. You gotta be honest. You know, no fluff and just, you know, keep it real. You know, and that's one thing I love about, you know, I travel all across and internationally when I play shows, right? If I'm doing the Super Bowl or if I'm doing MLB All-Star break or, you know, I do a lot of big corporate stuff, MasterCard, you know, Target, whatever. I'm in all these different cities. I'm always like, get me back to St. Pete. Get me back home. That's the one hard part about my job and what I do is I have to travel a lot. But there's nothing like St. Pete charm. And there's nothing like I can, you know, I live in Shore Acres. There's nothing like the fact that I can get in a golf cart with my family and follow the water down in a golf cart, see some dolphins, right?
Manatees.
Maybe some manatees. You get that nice wildlife and kind of ocean life, right? And then see everybody working out, running, working on their health and on their wellness, maybe meditating, maybe just having a picnic, right? All along the waterfront as you enter into North Shore Park. And then you enter into downtown. Then you go and you hang out. Maybe you check out, you know, some retail spaces. You know, maybe there's, you know, just a guitarist playing a guitar on the side of the, you know, sidewalk. You know, the other day we saw the Science Center or whatever has the telescopes and all of the planets were in line and they just have a free little science thing right. I thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah. Well,
so
it's because of our good weather. We can spend more time outside.
Well, and I think it goes to the St. Pete charm, you know, like you imagine if you set up like a little science center with some telescopes in Philadelphia, people come over and they'd kick them over probably within a matter of probably 3 minutes.
Yeah, you might have a few addicts hanging around, depending on where you're at. No, it's a very valid point. Speaking of Shore Acres, how'd you make out during the storms?
You know, we can't complain. We you know, this is our third time flooding. Luckily, we have a 2-story, so it was really our family room and offices that got kind of destroyed. But we took on about 3.5 feet of water, and that's, you know, it's very depressing coming into the neighborhood now because
it's empty.
I would say more than half of the people are still not even there. You got people living in RVs and campers, you know, in the front lawn, and it's really sad. And I'm glad we actually talked about this because I always had great relationships with all of the mayors, all the city council members because of what I do for the community. You know, I'm heavily philanthropic. I'm heavily involved in a lot of charitable organizations, Children's Dream Fund, All Children's Hospital. I do stuff at Children's Cancer Center in Tampa. But, you know, I always try to be a good steward of the community and use my platform for the better and for the good, right? And I very rarely will get controversial and speak out unless I absolutely feel extremely passionate about it, right? Sometimes when you have big corporate clients, you have to kind of play neutral.
Yep.
Let's be honest.
Yep.
I'm absolutely extremely disappointed in the city's ability to take care of their residents. People still can't build. They can't get permits. You know, it's absolutely absurd to me that, and I'm not just talking about my neighborhood. I'm talking about the adjacent neighborhoods. I'm talking about, you know, I mean, Shore Acres flooded, Tanglewood flooded, you know, all the way up to Publix and the Plaza on 4th Street. That's never happened before. Where's the help? Where's the community has been great. I've never seen such a rally of neighbors before all coming together, and I think that's what kept everybody sane. But I'm telling you right now, if these elected officials don't get off their hands and do something and help all of us, we all have, there's 11,000 code complaints, you know what I mean, on all of our homes now. So even if we go try to sell a home, we're having all these, like,
they did a blanketed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, what is that doing for the community? What is that doing for their property value? What is that doing to attract people to come back into town?
I can speak a little bit to that as to why they did that, because it's a balance between the federal government and our FEMA funding.
I get that. I totally get that.
Right? Because if they don't, we take chance of losing. We get a discount on our insurance because we're qualified through FEMA.
Right.
So if the city doesn't take measures to make sure that homes are being put back together appropriately, we can lose that 25% discount that we're getting.
Totally get that.
So not to saying I'm not saying they're handling it right, but that was their way of like, how do we make sure that expenses don't go up on the insurance side? Because we know in Florida, insurance is an animal, right? That to tackle.
110%. Well, especially being flooded 3 times in 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, like now our neighborhoods, especially the Snell Island, Shore Acres neighborhoods, are almost becoming like, okay, you guys are, you know, you have the red X on all of your doors now. Mm-hmm. Now, what used to be 2 of the most prominent neighborhoods where everybody dreamed, I grew up in apartments on North 4th Street. I dreamed of living
back there
because I would go visit my friends and I'd be like, this is like an island. This is beautiful. This is literally, I dreamed of living there. And I always said to myself, once I make it, once I have a family, we are moving there. We bought back in 2010 and I'll never leave. I'll never leave.
So before we can keep going on things that can be better, but what is it that's so special? Because it's crazy. You're sitting here saying, I flooded 3 times. I'm never leaving. Where some people are looking like, you're effing crazy,
Sure.
Doug. What do you mean you're not leaving?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
You're prone. You live in a freaking flood zone. You live underwater.
Yeah.
Why would you want to stay there? But it's something about the community back there. What is it? Why do you want to stay?
Nowhere else can you, you know, maybe in Coquina Key, right? You know, down there, but nowhere else can you be centrally located. Where I am a 15-minute, 20-mile-an-hour golf cart cruise or 20-mile-an-hour electric bike cruise away from getting into the heart of our downtown.
So
right?
Location,
hands down. Also, coming into the neighborhood when it's not flooded and, you know, people are in there, it's beautiful. You're going over bridges, you're seeing dolphins, you know, it's a mood booster, right? You know, we just went and I had to take something to somebody who was out in Riverview, and no judgment out there, but I was like, man, there's nothing to look at. And
no,
they had
I can judge.
Big, huge antennas.
My sister lives out there, and she knows it. I hate driving out there.
Yeah, these crazy 5G towers, and I'm just like, even if I built the home of my dreams, what you don't realize is like a subliminal thing, right? It's like your drive to and from your home, which is where you lay your head down, which should be the most comfortable Zen place, is it depressing or is it happy? With me, it's happy. My kids go to school right there in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I can take the kids to school in a golf cart. Where else can I do that? I'm not driving on 4th Street in a golf cart.
So the lifestyle is worth the risk of when September rolls around and seeing debris and all the things that are back in the neighborhood. And I'm genuinely asking.
The PTSD is real. Don't get me wrong.
Right. But the flip side of that coin is greater than the pain that you experienced during a flood.
Sure. And now what we're doing is we are, you know, we're building smart, right? Back, you know, so we're putting concrete board up, we're floating it, right? So that, you know, you don't have to sit there and rip out drywall. You don't have to rip out the insulation,
right.
you know, so we're actually building a little bit more smart now because of this. And plus, look, we have been there since 2010. We've never had a storm like this in over 100 years. Do we think this is going to happen again? In our lifetime? Maybe. Do I think it's going to happen this year, next year? Honestly, no. I'm still going to knock on wood, right? And that's documented. But, you know, I think, you know, we hadn't seen anything of that caliber. So, you know, look, yeah, some people can call me crazy, and that's fine. You can call me whatever names you want.
It's not just you, though, and I wasn't, because it's the community back there. To your point, you said, look, if it wasn't the elected official, it wasn't the city council, it wasn't government that stepped in, it was the community and like I feel like the vibe. I only know from like a few friends that live back there but like to me, it feels like the people that live in Shore Acres are like a bunch of people I want to go like on an adventure trip with.
110%.
You know, like I want to go hiking. I want to go skiing with these people.
110%.
I want to go do some cool shit. You know, I want to go jump out of airplanes or something, because I feel like
you're literally naming like all of my neighbors.
Right, but I'm saying you have to have that kind of like risk factor to live back there, which makes you a cool person.
Yeah, I mean, I think
in my book.
Yeah, I think you know, it's definitely going to change some people's minds. It definitely has. Some people just said, that's it. I've had enough. Pay me whatever you want. I'm just going to get out. And it sucks for them. They took a huge hit, whatever. It is what it is. I think that's the natural selection of how these situations go, though. Some people have had enough. They want to go more inland. Nope. I get it. You know, all of my properties that I do all the events for on the beach are destroyed. Mm-hmm. Postcard Inn. I play, you know, their pool parties. Don Cesar, you know, luckily Zamora's good because they're on the Bayside and they're built up, right? And they were built later than a lot of these historical places, you know. But, you know, a lot of those homes too
Oh, I know.
Same thing, right? So it's just, but are you going to call me crazy because I live on the beach? You have to know. Don't be naive to think that if you live on the water, right, in a flood zone in Florida,
You're taking a risk.
You're taking a risk. Like, let's, you
But
can't
for
sit
you,
there and be.
what we came to conclusion here is that the pain hasn't become greater than the joy, because that's when people make change, right?
So let me tell you this: I just built my wife her new kitchen, right, and the kitchen is on the second floor, right. Thankfully, I said to her after this storm, I was like, hey, if you want to think about selling, if you want to think about moving. And she broke down. I just had my dream kitchen built. I said, okay, no, we're good.
No, we're good.
We're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I wanted to humor that for her because the PTSD was so strong. Mm-hmm. We had to evacuate multiple times because with kids, we're not going to stay there. It's too risky, right? If it was me, I'm staying there like Lieutenant Dan and the hurricane.
I'm on the roof.
On the mast. Yeah, and I've got my American flag, my St. Pete flag, and all my St. Pete gear on, and I'm riding it out. But, when you have kids, it's a different story. And, safety first, right? So wind and water are two completely different things. So, but yeah, I mean, people are always going to say you're crazy, but you have to know the area and where you're living in. And, but I tell you that the community resolve and the way the community banded together and donated supplies and donated food and there was always some place you could go if you didn't have anything. If you lost everything, you knew where you could go because of a Facebook page.
Yeah, right.
And that neighborhood group page. If somebody needed diapers, if somebody needed linens, if somebody needed an air mattress, if somebody needed dehumidifiers, you got it within minutes.
It was remarkable.
There's a lot of neighborhoods where you wouldn't get that.
No, it's incredible. We had 32 agents between two offices that flooded.
Yeah.
So we were boots on the ground and saw it all happen. And it was remarkable to watch it come together. It really, really, really was. And it was just those that were out there. Like, hey, I need a shovel for this. I needed it. Whatever generator. It showed up. So yeah, no, it's a really cool thing, and it goes back to I was thinking about this of why do we love St. Pete? And community is the biggest word I can come up with, right? And it's the Shore Acres community, the yoga community. There's a fitness community. There's this nightlife community. There's an entrepreneur community. I mean, we can just keep going and going and going and going, and a lot of them are overlapped.
Sure.
And share a lot of cool experiences together and help each other in such a big way. This is a place to come and thrive in growth.
So you're not leaving?
I'm never leaving. I'm never leaving. I'm too bought into this city, and even with this show, I want to continuously help shape it. Yeah. Going forward. Do I want a mountain house? I do, because that's one thing. If Florida had mountains in the middle, we would be come on.
So let me tell you this. I don't mean to sound like a pretentious, arrogant guy or whatever, but we were very lucky enough last minute to get a cabin up in North Georgia for Milton. Okay. So we're in North Georgia, beautiful cabin. Happen to have a jacuzzi on the balcony, overlooking the Smoky Mountains.
Come on.
And I'm in there every day because I thought I was not going to have a home.
Right. You're like, I'm out. Pour yourself something nice.
And I said, you know what? That's it. Like, I was mentally preparing myself with a bottle of Horse Soldier bourbon. Shout out to the Urban Still House, the Horse Soldier. But I'm in the jacuzzi, and I came to peace with the fact that we were not going to have a neighborhood. Like, the whole neighborhood was going to be gone. Okay?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And after like 7 days of being up there, I was so excited to get back home. Like, that's the crazy thing that this city and this town does, at least for me, and I think a lot of other people too, is that, I could go live anywhere, right? But there's something so special, and it's a wide array of things, right? Just like we only touched on a surface.
Yeah. We could go on forever.
I was like, even though I was in a paradise situation in a mountain home with a jacuzzi and no worries, no problems, barely any reception, so it was great, especially to take a break from work and all the hectic
little
stuff.
Sabbatical.
Yeah. But I was like, get me back home. So I think it's that feeling right there.
Well, this is because this is the North Star.
How do you explain that to people that don't understand it? How do you explain that to people that don't?
Well, you have to come and experience it for yourself. I always tell people when they come visit, be careful.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to want to leave.
Right. 110%. Yeah. 110%. Yeah.
Yeah, but there is something about the mountains that's just a little bit of a different balance, you know. And
100%.
not to say I don't want to live in the mountains. I want to live here,
Sure.
but I want to. I like to visit.
Yeah.
I want to go visit.
We call it dual residencies.
Yes,
yeah. Why not
exactly,
get a
exactly.
vacation home?
Yeah,
you know?
you got to have beach and mountains. It's called balance.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. I love what you said though. Just to touch on the hurricanes one more. That people are building smarter. And I saw the coolest example of this. I wish I got to go back out there and take video and notes of all the things that he's doing. But I have a friend of mine. I call them they're my Florida grandparents. I met them at an open house when I first got in the business and started here. But the guy he's an incredible engineer. He had some health things happen to him. Actually fell off a cliff, broke his back. A crazy story, but still has his engineer brain. And now he has this gorgeous single story home on the water out at Madeira. And they've been asking me, do we sell? What do we do? Or do we build up? They love that they can walk out from their kitchen and onto their pool deck and go out to the actual deck out on the water, right? They're big open water. They don't want to go up because then you got stairs. Sure. To them, they're older. It just messes up the vibe. Right. So him with his engineer brain he's finding, how do we mitigate our risk when we do flood? Fiberglass, drywall. Sure. He's building his cabinets out of these I can't remember the metal, but the certain type of metal that won't rust that he can just hose off after. The bed frame's going to be on this, the nightstands. It's all going to look really cool. Sure. An industrial, modern type of thing, but built for a flood. Yeah. Because he's like, the only thing we won't be able to save is the couch. Sure. Yeah. And so I will go out there and document that more because I think that is exactly what needs to happen. Yeah. People are using, look, we're in a different time. Could you do that 10, 20 years ago? No, we didn't have the technology and the materials, there. Right. So, as long as we're trying to be smarter, about the situation and, my favorite word is like preparedness, like be prepared. What are you doing to prepare for the next time? Can you mitigate those risks? Do you have to rip out drywall? I don't ever want to rip out drywall again in my life, dude. I'm so over it. It's terrible. I'm like, concrete board? Yes. All right. That's great because you can mud it and finish it and it blends with your drywall as long as you have a talented enough person doing it. And then, you float it so the water goes out, has nothing to attach to because you don't put your, insulation there. Yes, your electric bill might be a little bit higher, but look, dude, it's you have to adapt. It's just like in business. If you're not adapting to the trends and to things that happen, well, you're going to start going backwards, or it's going to cost you more money. It's going to cost you more time, or if you're not adapting, you're dying. Blockbuster, they didn't adapt. What happened? Went out of business. Netflix took over. It's like it's the same thing. We have technology. It's like imagine being those guys on when Netflix came to them and they're like, "Yeah, no thanks." Well, here's the craziest part. Now, I would love to go back and have a Friday night date night with my wife at Blockbuster. I just saw a meme. They're like, it's Friday night, you're with your dad and you're at Blockbuster. I still remember the woman who used to take care of us her name was Darlene. Yeah. She was the sweetest lady. And it was just like, that was like the fun date night. Well, it was like an event that, now you open Netflix and you go, what do you want to watch? And you can sit there for an hour. It's awful. Right? It's awful. Whereas like you go into Blockbuster, you get to a point, you're looking, but there's only so much selection. Right. And you're going to see maybe the top movie, you didn't get there fast enough and there's no copies left. So you have to go to this section that you're not really sure. You're going to pick one. Demand at its finest. Right. Maybe you only got 2 or 3, right? So you come back and now it's just which one do we want to watch first? Right. And it was definitely, maybe there's an opportunity there with a little bit of a nostalgic movie place here, and if there's a place to do it, it would be here in St. Pete. Of course, right? Of course. No, but there's a lot of those business opportunities. Which tell us about some of the other businesses that you have, because DJ Fresh is not your only hat that you wear. What's really cool is the DJ and entertainment company that I have, which is called DJ Fresh Events. It really was the catalyst to open up so many other opportunities and so many other doors for me. So, obviously, I would do corporate events, private parties. I did a lot of stuff in nightlife here, back in the day, playing at, Push, helping to open like Bishop Lounge, Park and Rec, Suite 6, other places. But it was really the private events and meeting those kind of people and then doing charity events. Doing charity events and, this CEO or CMO said, hey, thank you so much for coming and being part of our event. Everything was great, whether I hosted the event or just set the vibe. Then they were like, can you do our corporate event? Can you do my daughter's Sweet 16? Can you do my daughter's wedding? Can you do that? And then it was just like, boom, boom, boom. So what I love about this town too is that I have never advertised a day in my life. I've never had to put up
flyers, billboards, this, that. It's been such an organic growth because it's all community. Be a good person, stay true to your word, slightly under promise and over deliver for your clients, right? So that you keep getting referrals.
Yep.
And then all of your clients turn into your sales force. So I've got 10 different
Word
DJs.
of mouth is the best.
I've got 10 different DJs right now that are doing all kinds of stuff. So we do stuff for the Rays now. We do stuff for the Bucks. We do stuff for the Lightning. We're at hotels on the beach. We're traveling across the country doing corporate events and weddings and all this kind of stuff. And then that led me into a couple of other things. So I'm a TV host and product expert in electronics on HSN, the Home Shopping Network. So I go and I actually represent brands like Beats by Dre, Sony, Samsung, Toshiba. I'll do like hoverboards and electric bikes, and I'll become the face of that brand and represent them live on air. That's led to a lot of other amazing opportunities too. We have a creative agency too, where we've actually produced a lot of the creative for the Tampa Bay Rays that you see. When you're in stadium, the player pump up pieces and stuff like that get you all pumped up before the players take the field. And then for a lot of my other clients, once COVID happened, I couldn't tour, I couldn't perform, I couldn't. I was like target number one because I would play in crowds of 100 or thousands of people. So once that shut down, I called up all of my entertainment and corporate clients. How about we film some creative for you? Why don't give me a shot at let me take a crack at some creative for you. And then they were like, because they trusted me in entertainment, they said, okay, show us what you got. And then we started producing content, and we had a creative agency, and we grew that. About 7 months ago, I partnered with 3 of my really good friends. One who's a big celebrity artist out of Tampa named Jason Skeldon. He goes by Skell, does a lot of great things for the community too, donates his paintings for Children's Cancer Center and this and that. And we formed our own marketing and ad agency called the Flying Goat Agency, which is so crazy, right? And avant-garde and has a cool, fun, creative, kind of spin on it. So we've been crushing it with that, helping small and medium-sized businesses get the content that they need and get the marketing that they need and the advertising they need to create and generate more leads, more business, which everybody needs, right? And then we're on our 3rd year with our video game development company, which I'm super, super pumped about. It's called PlayPals Studios. PlayPals is headquartered up in Clearwater, and we have a huge 2-story house that's like real world style that 6 of our developers, including our CEO, live in and work out of. And it is our creative hub. It is what we call our dev house, our development house. And we produce games and immersive experiences on the Roblox video game platform. So that's been super, super cool too. So everything is here.
I want to talk to you about that off air.
Sure, sure. But all of those came through the DJ and entertainment world.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And connections.
You've built a stackable business, right?
And everything can kind of feed into each other.
Yep. It's stackable.
That's the cool part.
You have your core, and you've built these other layers on top of
right.
it. When did you realize, or have you ever realized, the gift that you've been given of a personality?
Every day.
Do you recognize
every day? Oh, I thank God every day. I'm like, thank you for giving me.
Because you have I'm sitting here thinking, okay, who is Doug? Doug is a personality, right? You know how to draw attention, and all the way back to your story with the cowboy hat.
Yeah, it was, it's funny because like we can't find the video, but like my aunt always jokes about she got married, and at the reception, I like was doing a Michael Jackson routine, and I'm like 5 years old, full blown Michael Jackson routine. Like it might have even been in the dang ceremony at the church. I don't know, but it's things like that where I was always entertaining, and I always but I grew up different though. Like I grew up, watching James Brown and Michael Jackson and like true entertainers. These kids nowadays, they don't really have true entertainers.
TikTok.
Yeah, but they don't have like actual entertainers, right?
No.
The Weeknd is one of the last few actual entertainers, singing, dancing, actually putting out chart-topping music, right? That moves you and fuels your soul, right? A lot of the stuff out there now, music-wise, it's meaningless. There's no storytelling behind it, right? You listen to classic albums, from Led Zeppelin, like I said, or Beastie Boys, or this or that. They're storytelling. They're telling these stories.
I'm hearing you on that. Then I go, or is that just showing your age, right? Because the kids will tell you something different. And I'm just there's always been that thing of like those who grew up in the 20s, 30s, 40s would say, "The man that rock and roll just is not
It
for me."
sure was good,
Right? So there's always that. So I'm just bringing that back to
Sure.
you're just named a sweet spot in history for you in terms of music, which is at our core in our early age.
Sure.
And I agree with you. I don't know that I can resonate with the newer music. But not to say that then that when that generation is now our age, they'll look at that as their core.
They very well could.
So there's always that. There's always this cycle, Doug, and there's a great book by Morgan Housel called "Same as Ever," and we go through these cycles as human beings over and over and over and over again. That's why history repeats itself.
Sure.
And so it's funny to hear you say that because I'm not going to disagree because I think the platform has changed, right? Or even being a celebrity, where like Michael Jackson, for example, good, bad, or indifferent. As an artist, you only saw what one mainstream media put out. He didn't have control. He didn't have Instagram stories or that to show you his perspective. It was whatever narrative was painted of him.
Sure.
And so there was maybe there was a little more privacy then because not everyone was walking around with a camera in their pocket. So the stage has changed.
Well, and I think look. Forget 10 years from now. Let's look at 20 years from now. With AI and machine learning and everything like that.
Be careful, you're going to crack open a whole can of worms.
Do we need part 2 of this? Well, what I'm saying is like, you'll be able to recreate 70s disco era. You'll be able to recreate the 80s. You'll be able to, recreate 90s grunge music, right? You'll be able to, but it won't have, now look, maybe it will, but it won't have soul. And it won't have feeling, and it won't have true emotion that comes from a human body. At least, I don't think it will.
Right. So we can't say never.
But then quantum computing, who knows, man? Oh, I said the word.
Oh, man, Doug.
Let's have a nerd out session, part 2. The guys are over here laughing.
Listen, how much time do we have? For
you are on time over here? Okay, he got a thumbs up.
Okay.
Another hour. Let's just go.
Quantum world. Let's dive in. So if you're... Spooky action at a distance, right? Is what Einstein called quantum entanglement. Okay, so you flip 2 coins in the air. We put one of them on the moon. They're both spinning. The one on Earth lands on heads. The one on the moon immediately is also on heads. I flip it to tails. It's also tails. With zero latency in time. Doesn't matter the distance across time and space in the universe. So that's already weird. That things can be entangled.
Sure.
With quantum computing and light, did you see this? This will be. I want them to put this article in. An article just came out from the Italy's National Research Center that we turned light into a solid, a super solid. This is new news this week. This is crazy what it's going to do for quantum computing. So anyhow, I say all this because we could nerd out on this hard. That the power of what quantum will do, which any smart physicist will tell you the more you start to learn about it, the more confused you get.
Sure.
Right?
We don't, I don't feel we technically, there's a few of us that do, but we don't really have the brain power to really fully even understand this yet. That's the hard part.
Yeah. Well, to explain it in terms that our ego understands.
Sure.
Because we are a part of the quantum. And it gets into this weird spot. And this is where I can dovetail spirituality and quantum. If you want a really fun prompt in your ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT how the quantum and God are alike. And there's some unique parallels.
Sure.
So I spend time on this, my friend. I just had Chat write me in the deep research mode on ChatGPT. If you're not using that to get some real validity behind what you're looking up is incredible. It actually takes a few minutes. It took me 4 minutes last night for it to do the deep research.
Yeah.
And in an AI world,
needs to think about it.
Yeah, but it's going and triple checking all these sources. And I had it write me at a 5th grade level what this super solid and light meant because it's over my head. I can't. Right.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, now based off of that research, what do you think that means for technology of the future? And it's like, do you want to know in healthcare, communication, transportation? I said all of the above. Wow. And I wanted to read it all. Yeah. And they're pretty much saying that they'll be able to do surgery with our cells at a quantum level with this super solid of light.
Sure.
I nerded out on that hard to say. For us to say that AI won't be able to have a creative soul, I don't know.
Right.
But if it's 90% as good, it's going to beat out a lot of people.
Sure. Well, and
I don't know if any of that made sense, Doug. But
just like this line in the table, right? Yeah. It almost looks like it's kind of 2 tables pushed into one. I know it's just a design, but this is us right here having this conversation right here and now.
Yep.
Well, there could also be another line in time with us having the same conversation.
But we're on different sides of the table.
Well, yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, think about, I'm having deja vu. I feel like I've done this before. Well, what is that? And then I watched this crazy special, okay, where this professor of the study of humans and everything, I forget what his actual title was, right? He goes, I think with these alien encounters, okay, like these, alien, let's just call them aliens, okay? Our future beings of ourselves, our future versions of ourselves coming back in time to check on us and watch over us. So what an alien, what we may see, right, with the larger eyes, the larger cranium, bigger brain, developing over time, over thousands of years, coming back to check on us to make sure we're not ruining the planet, doing harm, doing this, doing that. Because, yes, there are billions of galaxies, billions of planets, yada, yada, yada. We're a small microcosm in the big grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah.
We can't be naive to sit there and think that we are alone, right? But I was like, wow, okay. I could wrap my head around that. I could see that. Like, that does kind of make a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
What if?
Yeah. Well, and this is why I'm fascinated with AI right now, because the conversation I keep having with myself is, how and when does AI become conscious, and can it?
Yeah.
And to define
that's the Terminator-ish right there, man. That's the crazy
you
stuff.
have to define what is consciousness.
Sure.
Before you can say, can we create it? And that's where it gets there's a lot of debate around, and this is where religion and everything else comes into to try to describe this. But what I'm finding now with this quantum research is that we think that, to move something light years away, that we have to take that time. Like, okay, it's 1 billion light years away. So how are we ever going to get there? But now what we're finding with quantum, we may not actually need to spend the time. We may be able just to get there.
Well, you just bend it
and go
and
through.
then just go through.
Which they think of when they're creating. So in quantum computing, I don't know if you know. So this is a lesson for anyone want to know, what is a quantum computer? What is this craziness you talk of? Here's the best way I can describe it. Computers right now use zeros and ones to communicate. Hold 0, 1, nothing or something. A quantum computer uses a qubit, which is it can be 30% 0, 70% 1. It creates this state of what they're calling superposition, which has to be in a condition so cold, it's literally the coldest place in the universe because it can't have any outside frequency interrupt it, or it knocks it out of superposition. This is how early we are in the stage of quantum computing. But there's some theories that superposition state is a hole in the universe.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
I've gone down the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
but what's crazy is these are this is real science. Yeah. This is not even like some conspiracy hokey pokey.
Right.
Like
tinfoil hat. Yeah.
No.
These people watching this right now going, these guys have tinfoil hats.
No. Go. IBM is doing this.
Yeah.
Google is doing this. You can go this is published research that's out there. That what we're doing. And it's really cool to think of when quantum's at a consumer level, maybe it's 20, 30, 40 years from now, maybe it's sooner. What is AI doing? And are we just thinking and communicating with one another and not even having to open our mouth holes?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a whole.
And is it helping or hurting? Or is it now a battle between them, whether it's doing positive or negative stuff to society, to humans?
Well, when I think about it, so I can tie this back because I'm like, okay, people listening are like, what are you going? Okay, so talk about, innovation.
There's good Terminators and bad Terminators.
Innovation of a city, right? How do you make yourself future-proof?
Right.
You have to look at this. And in the quantum world, if you have a banking system that isn't using cybersecurity against a quantum computer could hack your whole thing in a minute.
Yeah, you could lose everything.
And so you think about a city, you think about power grid, you think about other tech. We want these smart people to be here
100%.
working on our infrastructure because they need to be.
Yeah.
And I love that we have this innovation district and stuff like this coming on. And we have some really smart people here to have these conversations because I'm an idiot.
Right? Dude, I'm a DJ.
Right.
We went from talking about DJing to quantum computing.
We have no business there.
Like, people are like, what are they on right now? What kind of green stuff did they get their hands on? It's not even St. Patty's Day yet.
Yeah.
You know? But this is what makes it fun, right? And this is what makes this town fun.
Yeah, exactly.
This community fun.
That we can go off on these little rabbit holes.
Well,
right?
yeah, and people like you just relocated here 4 years ago, right? I'm a lifer here, and that's what I enjoy. I enjoy meeting people and having great people come into our city, realizing that it's the best place on earth to live and to thrive and to work and to potentially raise a family, right? And grow your roots here. And when they realize that awakening, I call it like the 727 awakening, right? The St. Pete awakening. I'll never leave.
We need to make
I'll
t-shirts.
never leave. Yeah.
We need to
It's
make
like
t-shirts.
I'll never leave because why would you want to? Like everything is here, and what isn't here, it's probably already being planned. It's probably about to break ground. It's probably they're probably in the permitting office right now waiting on the permits because they're all backed up because they're trying to get us our permits from the flood.
Right. Innovation District should go help them to find a way to streamline that process. Right.
I'm telling you, you want to really get some points? Yeah. Community leaders, ruffle some feathers because it's about
you need developers.
Like that's what makes this area so special and so great, and that's why people don't want to leave because there's always help and community. And now we're on a whole different playing field. I mean, dude, 10, 15 years ago, there was none of this stuff here. None of this stuff.
How cool is it?
I mean, it's like
Do you find it cool? Someone who's like grown up and you've watched it, because I've had people on the show that are like, all the traffic, 4th Street's not the same, blah 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 blah. All the, they like it, but they're also like, there's that side of the coin of like, to them, it's already lost some of the
Of
specialness.
course. Yeah, I mean, look, you can't please everybody.
Yeah.
When I'm DJing on the dance floor, you really think I could be the best DJ in the world?
Somebody
which
doesn't
I'm
like the
not.
music.
Am I really good at what I do? Yes. Am I the best DJ in the world? No. Not even the best DJ in the world can please everybody on the dance floor.
No, it's true.
Somebody could play a Dua Lipa song. Oh, I hate Dua Lipa. Well, there's one person that you just didn't please.
Yeah.
You can never please everybody. But as long as you're doing a greater good and a greater service for the greater good of the greater amount of people, I think you'll have success. Once you stop doing that, it's like the redevelopment with the Trop, right? It's like back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, where are we at with that?
Well,
I'm so
they're like,
behind.
well, we need this, we need that. There's so much. It's the #1 real estate in all of downtown, and blah 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 blah. Yes, but look, we can't keep fighting against this group of people versus this group of people, or a South Side group of people versus the North Side of people versus the East Side of people, or the beach people, or the. It's like, guys, we're all humans. We're all from St. Pete. We all live we're all in the same sandbox.
Yeah.
We can't keep throwing sand, right? So it's like, why can't we do a little bit of everything for everybody? Like Atlanta did a really great job of this. You go to, Truist Park up there and it's entertainment districts, live music. If you have a family, the kids can play. If you want to go search for an old, some old vintage records, there's an old vintage record shop there. There's a barbecue place. There's a high-end place. There's this place, that place. There's, 3 different like dance clubs. You can go and meet somebody on a social side. There's tons of retail, local shop owners. Literally you can spend the whole day there. Mm-hmm. That's what we need. Plus, I really feel like we need a hotel with a big, huge space that will really draw in a lot of money from the corporate events.
I think so too.
It has to be a mixed-use space. It really does.
And I thought the plans that were drawn up before, it was looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm not, I should be, I'm a little behind because it's been flip-flopping so quickly on what's going on. But I did, Mike Sweezy, when he was here, he did say that they did go visit Atlanta to get some ideas to bring back.
I played a huge event up there with Visa and the U.S. ski team, and I was blown away.
In Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I came back and I was like to the Rays, I was like, guys, that's exactly what we need. That's great. And we have water. We can play off of, you know what I mean? Like water, too. Like we could have people paddleboarding and make like a cool like lagoon or something and like have it be like health and wellness and stuff too. Like, there's a place in, I think it was San Diego, and they had a turf wiffle ball for just kids to play wiffle ball out there. Like,
that's cool.
Little things like that
that
aren't
cool.
big cost-heavy situations that could be sponsored by a local business, maybe a Duke Energy, maybe a so-and-so or whatever. Like little things like that so that there's still community and free stuff. Not everything has to cost money. There has to be free things for the people that obviously cannot afford to be,
but still draw attention.
Something for everybody.
Like the pier.
110%.
Yeah.
You don't even need to go to the pier.
No.
It's great.
Yep.
You want to go get splashed on? You don't need to pay to go to Splash Park. Go in there and run around.
Have you been to the Sphere in Vegas?
I have not yet.
Let me tell
But
you.
I'm big into the immersive tech spaces and virtual production stuff.
You have to go.
I know.
You have to
That's
go.
the downside about being a workaholic and,
Make that a work research trip.
I'm waiting for Rufus to go, and then I'm really gonna go.
So I think then you need to go twice.
Okay.
We just had our large conference out there, and took the leadership team there, and the documentary that was made for it, it's called A Postcard from Earth, goes into this whole space thing, AI thing that we're kind of talking about, but that they really tailored the sphere for that experience. And I'm going to tie this all into St. Pete in a minute. But so you're in there, obviously massive screen inside of it. That's not even the coolest part. 80% of the experience is the sound. There's over 180,000 speakers inside this thing that are tailored, so every seat has the same sound experience.
Sure.
There's a part where you're coming up over the mountains. They're blowing cold air through it. So
it's an immersive experience.
It's incredibly immersive. The seats are shaking. You're in a church and you smell the incense of the church as you're coming through. It's being pumped into place. Incredible.
Universal Studios on steroids.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So I say all that because I think that Postcard from Earth documentary with the way they made it immersive would be really, really cool. And then, of course, to see a concert in there would be neat, but two totally different experiences
100%.
in the same venue. I say all that because there was an article that was leaked on Tampa Tomorrow saying unknown new investment group wanting to purchase the Rays has entered the conversation with plans calling for 24/7, 365 entertainment district comparable to Vegas and the Sphere. I was literally researching after being there of like, is there another one of these in the works? Because it's that cool and it's such an entertainment. And can you imagine if we had our own Sphere out in that development?
Yeah, so
that would be the attraction piece.
100%. You if you go to Brooklyn has an entire immersive experience area over there now too, as well. So you're starting to see more of it pop up, right? I think we need to be on the forefront of something like that. Look at what the Dolly did, right? The Dolly has their dome, their exhibit. Now, keep in mind, they are a nonprofit.
It's really cool,
right?
It's
but
really cool.
They are thinking outside the box and trying to do something different and unique and give people a different viewpoint than the traditional museum box. You go and you see the paintings.
Have you been?
Yeah. They're one of my clients, and I do their surreal summer nights.
Okay, cool.
It's what you're talking about is on a whole different level. Okay, so I think and I feel because St. Pete and Tampa have grown on the tech side so much, especially with people like Megan O'Keefe and everybody over there and Accenture and all of them, even like we have the Powered Up Tech Festival right here at Mahaffey, which is so rad and so cool. And I've met so many amazing people. I spoke on a panel about music and AI and how that's all kind of what we just kind of dove into a little bit. But now we have, especially with like Kathy moving, her thing down here too. We have one of the top Bitcoin guys that's down here, Gabe Higgins. It's like, look, we have this here. This is on the radar. This has been on the radar. I've been talking about this for 3 years now. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stuff people don't realize is happening, and we're being scoped out because we are in one of the best destinations ever. We're surrounded by water.
Yep.
We're surrounded by beauty, beaches, boat life. I mean, look at what we have. We have Champa Bay. We have championship sports teams. I mean, come on. Where do you get? No, true. Think about it. Think about it for a second. Where do you get that? We have a Firestone Grand Prix race where cars are going 200 miles an hour through our city. Where do you get that? Monaco?
Right.
I always say St. Pete's like a little Monaco.
Yeah.
Just with a little bit smaller pocketbooks.
Yeah. No, it is, but we got it.
But that's why it's so attractive to investors.
Yeah.
And innovative tech guys.
There's still a lot of room for growth. What do you think would happen if they got rid of the airport? Albert Whitten.
I don't think they should.
I don't think they should either, but it's a conversation.
Yeah, it's a conversation, but I think the airport is key because you can fly into St. Pete Clearwater, right? But how gnarly is it that you can just fly right into a downtown district in a very small airport?
No, it's
right?
So gnarly.
And what are you going to build? You going to build condos there?
Right, that's what I'm saying. But it would obstruct everything. It would just mess it all up.
I don't think they would let it happen because there goes St. Pete. No,
I agree.
There goes St. Pete.
But from a tax and development standpoint, they're looking at that like hungry hippos. You know what I mean? They're
Sure.
like, yeah.
But, they can look at it all they want, but you do that, there goes the charm.
I agree.
There goes the charm.
Don't do it.
You're going to lose it.
I told him, when I was having the conversation with Mike, I was like, if we lose that airport,
Yeah.
we lost St. Pete.
Yeah. And there's a lot of key power players at that airport. That's what people don't really realize.
I think we can
some of the people that have the
innovate it.
hangars.
We can make it cooler.
Well, of course, you can always make something cooler.
Yeah.
But once you start taking up that skyline and you can't see that water, your charm is done. Your charm's gone.
It's
like
over.
Look how long it took with the whole pier situation, right? The inverted crazy triangle that it used to be, and it was such a big debacle with it now, and like it or hate it.
I don't know all the. I don't know. No one's ever given me all the. What was the conversation on the street?
Well, it was a bunch of different. It was a bunch of different designs, and the final few were submitted, and then the mayor and everybody had to kind of pick which one and all that stuff. But look, nobody's ever going to be happy 100% with whatever we go with.
Yeah.
But as long as it meets the criteria, that isn't the most ungodliest, ugliest looking thing that really takes our city value down, as long as it's built for sustainability, as long as it can service all kinds of people, rich, medium class, they don't have $2 to their name. As long as people can still go there and use some sort of amenities, right? And it benefits everybody as a whole. Well, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Right? And now it's attracting so many people. You can ride your bike around there. Our family loves going there, and just because it's cool. And it's you go up to the top, you can see, now it's like, we love that little shop right there. We'll take the golf cart or take our bikes down there, and there's they have the best little breakfast sandwiches right there. That little cafe on the left there, you can get a
underneath
coffee.
At the pier.
Just underneath. Little hidden gems.
Yep.
Like that are what makes St. Pete so great. And it's those little things that are key to the survival of is this going to be accepted, or are people going to revolt against it? Are they going to support it or not?
I agree.
That's the trop redevelopment. It's
Yeah.
like, what's going to happen with that? None of us really know. There are some people that do know.
There are.
But
a select few.
Yeah.
We need that is a huge that is a pivotal moment for the city.
Yeah.
I think that is a lot of, for those that are making that decision, one, you should come counsel us. We can give you our thoughts. But it definitely has a huge impact over the next 20 years of the city.
Sure.
Sure. And beyond, right?
Yeah.
You think about what's 30 years look like from now. Here's my last little crazy thought on time and all that is I believe, and we know that there's a lot of data to support this. I'm thinking about my great grandmother's still alive, and I think about the amount of innovation that she's seen in her lifetime, from World War II to planes coming commercial flight, all that stuff. Like now, the internet, now the AI exists in her lifetime. Yeah. It doesn't mean she's using it, but
sure.
But it's here.
Yeah.
The next 50 years, we are going to see more innovation than she saw in her entire life.
Sure.
Like that, it's hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
it's
crazy.
You're like, wait a minute. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
We're sitting here now, 20 years from now, we're looking back wow, look how old that was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because we're not holograms, right? People are watching holograms.
You won't need to ride a scooter to go to your dinner. You'll just have a sweet jetpack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ryan will just be flying around to Bella Brava or wherever you're going to go. Park Shore.
Silent jet. Yeah, something. Who knows, right? I don't know. That's the thing with flying cars I'm worried about is because they're so loud.
Not only that, but it's like... if people can barely drive on the road,
they would have to
you're
be
going to get a pilot license?
They would have to be automated.
But let's think about that.
Yeah. AI's running it, quantum computing. They won't wreck.
And let's think about, if that can be hacked.
Yeah.
The danger of that.
Well, that's anything.
Stuff
You're
flying
talking
in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, people flipped out about these drones that were going over New Jersey.
We still don't know what those were.
Right? And it's like, I don't know. That's kind of the scary stuff for me. So I think, you're going to have a lot of people, I had some really good friends of mine relocate from our area and go and just buy 10 acres down in, Lakewood Ranch in Sarasota area. And, they're like, I want to be off the grid. You know what I mean? Like, I have a sustainable system down here. Mm-hmm. And I'm good, and I'm off the beaten path. It takes me 20 minutes to get to frickin' 275. And that's appetizing too.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot of people really kind of, people are always going to want the city hustle and bustle, bright lights and billboards and this and that and be in that kind of Tokyo-esque, stimulation zone city life. And then you're going to want the people that are not like that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be on the beach or on the water. I want to have my own little island chilling with my own little community of people. Or I want to be down in a plot of land, living off the land if I need to, depending on if stuff goes sideways, whatever. It's a conversation for a whole nother day. But, look, to each their own, right? But I feel like in life and in business, how are you adapting? Keep your community good, right? Run your business with good business ethics. Meet as many people as you can. Because I always, when I go and I speak at events or I talk to schools, I'm like, look, opportunities come from the more of a network that you have, the more connections that you have, right?
You're the power of your network.
You are the power of the network. And, if Ryan knows 100 people and I only know 10, who do you think is going to be able to have more opportunities come out of that network of people? Well, it's you. Especially if you're doing good by those people, somebody asks you for a favor or this or that or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like everybody's helping each other. Now you have a whole sales team of people that are all supporting Ryan. So if somebody goes, hey man, my friend just called me, they think they want to sell, but Ryan, got to call Ryan. You're on top of mind because of what you've put out there.
Yep.
And those are the good people that have lifelong longevity in life and in business and success because they get that and they understand that.
Yeah, you gotta do good. You gotta have empathy. You gotta do good, and you gotta stay top of mind.
Yeah,
and that's what we're doing.
And if you're not doing good and you're not being good and you're not running your business with good ethics, you better get out of St. Pete.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, you won't make it.
Right.
You won't make it.
Town's too small.
You'll get found out so quick.
100%.
So quick.
100%.
Doug, it's your birthday. We're going to dinner in St. Pete. Where are we going?
That's tough, man.
I know.
You can't make me call out certain friends and not plug certain friends and all that.
Maybe we go somewhere for appetizers.
I'm gonna have to split it up. I gotta share the love. Yeah, because honestly, we're so blessed. You got the Steve and Nancy Westfalls, right? You got you got the Bella Brava. You've got Urban Stillhouse, right, with the Horse Soldier, crew over there. Oh man, that's tough.
I know it's a hard question.
I love me some brunch at the Hangar too. I mean, the brunch is so good.
I haven't done that yet.
I mean, dude, just to go there and watch the airplanes.
I love planes.
And then you want to take away the airport?
No, you're not taking away my airport.
I'm like,
no.
Come on. What am I going to look at? Oh, yes, let's have some nice breakfast and look at this 50-story high rise.
No.
No, come on, man. Like, that's the charm of St. Pete. Like, they give the kids the little airplanes and, it's like, it's beautiful, but I don't know. That's tough, man. I mean, I love the Pasta Brava, Bella Brava. I love. It's classic. Tyson does a really good job over at Park Shore. I love Urban Stillhouse. That experience to me is so unique. It is like you're in the mountains in Montana.
It's like it almost is it's a totally different vibe than everywhere else.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Completely different. But, you've got people like Chef Ted Dorsey, who's getting ready to open up a really cool, unique spot, the Sunshine City Grill, I believe, on 4th Street. Mm-hmm. There's an old barbecue joint that was there, and he lives in Shore Acres. Great chef, great family man, had his hands in a lot of places over the years in St. Pete, and finally has his beautiful new place. So he's polishing that thing up to get ready to open that. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, that's tough, man. I can't really say just one.
I know
that's
it's a hard question.
That's a great question.
Right?
Don't ever ask me that again, because that's a really hard question.
Never again. Don't ever do that. Yeah. Well, sometimes people name some stuff that we haven't heard of, or they have a secret little spot, and it's
I did eat at 4-2 for the first time.
What'd you think?
I liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was a guy's night, so it was just me, Chris G, and a few friends.
Yeah.
And we went there, and the dessert was like insane.
Yeah, they have cool dessert.
Yeah, she was like, "Do you want dessert?" I was like, "Ah," and then we're like, "All right, just bring us one of everything."
Yeah,
like I want to see the experience. I'm an experience guy.
Yeah, they have some cool
Bring
stuff.
us one of everything, and I mean the presentation, the taste, I was like blown away. I mean, food. Like I'm kind of a basic food guy, but the presentation and the experience for that was like a different level. That's a date night place. That's like
that was
a
the
specialty
first.
place.
I mean, there's places on Beach Drive. I feel like 42's kind of brought the like the restaurants that are coming. We got to step our game up just a
100%.
little bit. You know what I
100%.
mean?
Yeah.
And not that we want to go to Tampa.
Right. No.
Don't
No.
do that to me. But
we don't need to do the Michelin star crazy stuff. We don't need to.
No. But like a sprinkle of a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you're not.
It's nice to feel like maybe you went to this posh place in Miami, but you just go right down the street to downtown St. Pete.
Right.
You don't need to eat there every night.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
But go out and try a different experience. Go out and try something new. Go out and support, these people putting millions of dollars into this business because they want to offer something. I always say, like, when I would open bars and clubs and stuff, we're not serving drinks or we're not serving food. We're serving experiences. You're creating experiences for these people to come back. It's not about whether you can make the best smoked old fashioned. Anybody can make those. And there's always somebody that can make them better than you, right? Or this signature drink or that signature drink.
No, it's the experience of it's everything. It's
Right.
all encompassing.
Who's serving that to you?
Yeah.
Are they complimenting you on how you look?
Yeah.
Are they complimenting the handbag that your girl has with you? Are they complimenting your watch? Are they striking up conversation with you? Like that to
It's
me
small things.
is what makes St. Pete really great. Because if I don't get that, I'm not coming back.
Yeah, no, it's true. The people
But
got to
if
be
I
kind.
get that, you've got me. I'm dedicated.
I think in such a small town community, right? You have to do good and you have to have empathy and you have to care because, to our point, you're not going to make it.
Right.
If not.
Right.
This isn't New York City where you get lost in the abyss.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know? So
You're sitting there looking around going, where do I go? Where do I go?
so much. Doug, we could go on forever.
Yeah, man, this is great.
We're gonna talk about how we could maybe do a little more of that. For those that are still with us, where do they find you?
Yeah, unfortunately, nobody can really get rid of me because I'm kind of everywhere and anywhere.
But for the two people who don't know who you are.
Yes. I'm easily found. Social DJ Fresh Events is my company. So if you just type that in, I'll pop up. Instagram, obviously, website's djfreshevents.com. And then I'm always posting on my Insta and even Facebook too of where I'm going to be at. So the last Sunday of every month at the Hollander Hotel, I do a really cool certified fresh DJ or DJ Fresh and Friends kind of pool party and stuff too. So, locally owned and operated. Mike does a really great job with that hotel. It's what I love about Hollander is it's a judgment-free zone. Anybody and everybody. Come celebrate your birthday, come hang out with some friends, entertain some friends that are maybe in town. I play a cool mix of music. I'm always bringing in different DJs and stuff too. So it's always a really cool eclectic vibe. And it's just a really great group of people. No issues, no problems, no judgment.
Right.
Just everybody
Just
there
a good-
having
let's
a
have
good
a good
time.
day.
That's
Let's
it,
have a
man.
good day.
Just true St. Pete.
Yep.
A true St. Pete vibe. So I do that the last Sunday of every month at Hollander. And then obviously, I'll be having to jump across the bridge to Steinbrenner Field to play for our Tampa Bay Rays, but really excited to get back to seeing our fans on both sides of the bay, which is great for that. But I always do all different types of events, so I always put that on the socials. So come hang out and come party, and let's
Doug,
hang.
this has been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. Great to meet you too.
Yeah, likewise,
Yeah.
likewise. We'll have to do another one.
And thanks for doing this for St. Pete too, because like I said, this is really awesome. We need more of this cool, fun talk and innovative, kind of strategy about where we're going and how we're getting there. And you've brought some really cool people on, so I was happy to be one of them. So appreciate it.
Just want to share the voice.
Yeah.
I mean, the show it's Talkin St. Pete. Let's just talk the town. We have so many cool people here that started cool things, and just hearing their backstory. For me, it's always like in you sharing your story, right? And where they're I was gonna do whatever it took. I'll clean the toilets. I'll do whatever, right? I'll do the cowboy hat thing. You went all in, right? There's always these pivotal moments, and I love discovering that in other business owners and people that are doing cool things and where that spark happened. So that's what it's all about. But appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah,
this
likewise,
is great.
likewise.
I'll look forward to part 2.
Yeah, same. Follow, like, share, subscribe. Tell a friend. Tell a friend and go share a reel. See you on the next one.